All right, everybody, get ready, because today we are going deep into the Festivus Report 2023.
Oh, nice.
Which, kind of lays out all these really interesting examples of government spending.
Mm.
And it's really, I think, a really cool report.
Yeah.
Because it uses humor.
Yeah.
To look at this serious topic.
It's a very serious topic.
Like, it's almost $900 billion.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
In questionable spending.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, some of this stuff is
crazy.
Yeah. They talk about how, like, Barbie dolls?
Yeah, Barbie dolls.
Were used as ID for COVID relief funds?
For real?
Like, what?
That's wild.
How did that even happen?
That's what we're going to dig into.
That's what we're going to dig into.
Yeah.
So let's start there.
Okay, sounds good.
Let's start with the COVID spending.
All right, so COVID spending section, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so this report highlights how fraudsters used photos of Barbie dolls, like...
I still can't get over that.
It's hard to believe.
It's wild.
To get COVID PTP funds, and they were able to slip past this system that was supposed to be powered by...
So they had, like, an AI checking the IDs, and somehow a picture of a Barbie doll got through.
Yeah, crazy, right?
That's insane.
But it really underscores how relying on AI for important processes like this, especially when you're talking about so much money, can have vulnerabilities.
Billions of dollars.
Exactly. The Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, was allocated $800 billion.
Wow.
And of course, a big chunk of that was lost to improper payments.
Oh, man.
And that kind of brings us to the larger issue of improper payments across the government.
Okay, so how much are we talking about here?
Well, the report states that improper payments in fiscal year 2023 alone,
just 2023,
totaled $236 billion.
Good Lord.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And that includes, like, over $43 billion for pandemic unemployment assistance, and then another $4 billion for PPP loan guarantees.
So all this money just going out the door.
Yeah.
To the wrong places, essentially.
Essentially. Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of, like, a good analogy.
It's hard to really grasp that amount of money.
Yeah, it's like the government is just, like, sending out enough money to buy every person in the country anew.
Yeah, like, what could you buy with that much money?
Exactly.
It's crazy.
It really makes you think, like, how effective are these oversight mechanisms?
For the checks and balances.
Yeah.
You would think they would have something in place to prevent this kind of waste.
Yeah, so we had all this chaos with COVID spending.
Right.
But I'm hoping that things are a little bit better now.
Yeah. Well, the report highlights some other areas of spending, too.
Yeah.
For instance, they talk about the NIH, the National Institutes of Health.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of them.
So $33.2 million was spent maintaining what they call Monkey Island.
Monkey Island.
Monkey Island.
What is Monkey Island?
It's a facility that houses animals that are used for research.
So like a research facility?
Research facility, yeah.
But they call it Monkey Island.
Monkey Island.
That's an interesting name.
It is a catchy name.
Yeah, it sounds more like a theme park or something.
Right.
Like, oh, let's go to Monkey Island.
Yeah.
That's assuming it serves some purpose, though, right?
Of course, yeah. I mean, research with animals is important.
Okay.
It helps us understand diseases and develop new treatments.
No, that makes...
But, the report does raise some questions about the costs associated with this type of research.
Okay, so maybe they're spending a little too much on Monkey Island.
Well, that's what they're suggesting.
That's what they're suggesting.
Yeah.
All right, so what else? What else is in this report?
Well, there's this one study that caught my eye. It was about, get this, Russian cats on treadmills?
Russian cats on treadmills?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it sounds crazy, right?
But our tax dollars.
$2.7 million from an NIH grant.
Went to funding research on Russian cats.
On treadmills.
Okay.
It was part of a bigger study, though, on cardiovascular health.
So, like, they weren't just putting cats on treadmills for fun.
Right.
Like, there was...
They had a scientific reason.
A purpose, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Sometimes research, it can take unexpected paths,
I guess so, yeah. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but
yeah,
I guess sometimes you got to do weird stuff.
You never know where the research will lead you.
Exactly.
What might seem a little strange on the surface
Yeah.
can actually have some valuable
Right.
scientific applications.
So it's not as straightforward as it seems. You got to kind of look at the big picture.
The larger context, yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Now, another example that sparked some debate
Oh, what?
was the transgender monkey study.
Oh.
This one received $477,121.
Okay, and what was this study about?
So they were studying if feminizing male monkeys would make them more susceptible to HIV.
Okay, now this is getting into some complicated territory, I guess.
Controversial one.
Yeah, so, I mean, is this type of research even ethical?
Well, the ethics of animal research are always a hot topic, And this particular study definitely spurred some controversy.
Yeah.
The report doesn't really take a stance on the ethical considerations, but it just highlights how these types of studies can raise concerns
for sure.
among the public.
For sure. It's definitely something to think about.
Definitely.
So, okay, we've talked about COVID. We've talked about the NIH.
Yeah.
What else is in this report?
Let's talk about the military. Okay, so the report points out that there are instances where millions of dollars worth of equipment were essentially left out to rot, exposed to the elements.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, military equipment.
It's expensive.
Yeah, very expensive.
That seems so careless.
It does, right?
Like, how does that even happen?
Well, we're talking $89 million worth of engines.
Okay.
Improperly stored outside.
Outside, yeah.
For how long?
For 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, and then $12.6 million in hydraulic transmissions exposed to humidity and standing water.
Oh, man.
And $68 million in tank treads just left out in the open.
It's just mind-blowing that
that's hard to believe.
This kind of neglect is happening.
Right.
And speaking of mind-blowing, the report also mentions that the military bought a lobster tank.
A lobster tank?
A lobster tank. Like
for $8,395.
For $8,000?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, they don't really say why in the report. Okay.
But it seems like they put that in there just to kind of,
to emphasize the validity of it all.
The contrast between that and then this neglect.
Right. Like, on one hand, you have millions of dollars of equipment rotting away.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, you're buying a lobster tank.
A lobster tank.
Like, what?
It makes you wonder, right?
Yeah, it really does.
About the priorities.
It makes you wonder about their priorities and the oversight, like, how is this even allowed to happen?
Right, like who's watching the ship, so to speak.
Exactly. And I mean, I'm not a military expert or anything, but it seems to me like if you're mismanaging resources like that, it could have a real impact on military readiness,
Absolutely. I mean,
like, what if we actually need those engines or those tank treads and
Let's
they're
see.
all like rusted and useless,
and they're just sitting there
gathering dust?
It's a scary thought.
It is a scary thought.
So, I mean, this is definitely something that needs further scrutiny.
Absolutely. I think we need to dig deeper into this and see what's really going on.
And for all of you listening out there, I mean, does this raise any concerns for you as we kind of navigate this
it's a complex work.
increasingly complex geopolitical landscape? I mean,
a lot of things to think about.
What do you think about all this?
Shifting gears a little bit,
Yeah.
this Festivus report also highlights something I think you'll find pretty interesting.
Okay.
Especially since you're always talking about, critical thinking and all that.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about misinformation and censorship.
Ooh, now that's a hot topic.
It's a hot topic.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So the report details how the Department of Homeland Security.
Okay, the DHS.
The folks responsible for protecting us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they use taxpayer dollars to fund. Okay.
Graphic novels.
Hey, what? Graphic novels.
Like comic books.
Yeah, like comic books.
To combat misinformation.
To combat misinformation.
Ooh.
Pretty wild, right?
How does that even...
It's an interesting approach.
Yeah.
So these graphic novels, they cover things like foreign interference in elections.
Okay.
COVID vaccine, quote unquote, disinformation.
Okay.
And even the conspiracy theory that Russia created a disinformation pandemic.
It's funny because a lot of what they were calling misinformation back then, like during the pandemic.
During the pandemic.
It's like now considered accurate.
Yeah, exactly. It just goes to show
Yep.
how quickly things change and how hard it is to figure out
Especially online.
what's true and what's not.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's especially online.
And it's not just about the past. The report also talks about the cybersecurity
Yeah, CISA.
and Infrastructure Security Agency, or
Okay.
CISA.
And their efforts to suppress speech on social media.
Yeah.
It makes you think, like, who gets to decide?
That's the big question.
What's misinformation?
Exactly. Who gets to decide?
And what does it mean for free speech?
And what are the implications? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope.
It is.
So what else is in this report?
Well, there's a whole section they call
Okay.
wasteful spending, big and small.
Okay, so give me some examples.
All right, so we got the USDA.
Okay, the Department of Agriculture.
Yeah, funding a study on walking dogs
Walking dogs.
in the summer.
Like how to walk your dog when it's hot out.
You would think people already know how to do that,
Right.
but apparently they needed a study for it.
I guess so.
And we don't know how much that cost.
Okay.
But there's another one where the Department of Homeland Security spent.
Okay.
We don't know how much
Okay.
training employees to be their authentic and best selves.
I mean, that's great. And all, but is that really the government's job?
I don't know. It's an interesting question.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then, get this, they paid $38 million to dead people.
To dead people.
To dead people.
Seriously.
Yeah, bureaucrcy at its finest, right?
That's insane.
It highlights the inefficiencies,
Yeah, for sure.
And then we got $400 million just sitting in the presidential election campaign fund account.
So we're funding campaigns that aren't even using the money.
Apparently so.
Okay.
And remember those NIH studies?
Yeah.
This time it's monkeys gambling
Monkeys gambling.
for drinking water.
What?
Yeah, it sounds crazy.
Okay, but what's the point of that?
Well, it was part of a bigger research effort,
Okay.
to understand addiction and
Right.
decision-making.
So there
So
is
it's about $3.7 million
a purpose.
for all the grants related to that.
Okay, so they're trying to
Yeah.
understand human behavior
Right.
through monkeys gambling.
It's an interesting
Yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, this next one is pretty wild.
Good.
The Small Business Administration, the SBA,
Yeah.
gave $200 million to famous musicians
Wait, what?
through a program.
So we're giving millions of dollars to
Yeah.
millionaires
Basically,
while actual small businesses are struggling?
yeah, that's what the report's saying.
That's mind-boggling.
It is pretty surprising.
Yeah.
And one more for you.
Okay.
NIH spent $3.8 million studying COVID misinformation.
Again with the misinformation.
Yeah, they seem to be focused on that,
Yeah.
specifically in Black and rural communities.
So is this a good use of taxpayer dollars?
Well, it depends who you ask.
Right.
Some might say it's important to study how information spreads,
Yeah.
especially in those communities.
Mm.
Others might say it's a waste of money.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It's a complex issue.
Yeah, but it seems like this Festivus report
Yeah.
is pointing out a lot of areas
It is.
where the government could improve when it comes to spending.
Yeah, sure.
So it's not just these individual examples.
Well,
We're talking about, like, a much bigger problem here.
yeah, the national debt.
Yeah, exactly.
The big one.
$34 trillion.
And growing.
And growing.
We add about $2 trillion every year.
I mean, that's just
It's a lot of money.
an unfathomable amount of money.
Yeah.
And the report says $659 billion
Wow.
was spent on interest payments alone.
Just on interest?
Just on interest.
Yeah.
In fiscal year 2023.
That's more than some countries' entire GDP.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
And, it's not just one party or the other.
Right. They both
Parties
share the blame.
are contributing to this.
It's a systemic problem.
So where do we go from here?
That's $1 million question.
Yeah, we've uncovered all this waste.
Mm-hmm.
But what are the solutions?
That's what we're going to talk about next.
I mean, we've been looking at all these crazy examples of spend.
There's a lot of weight.
But I think it's important to step back
Mm-hmm.
and think about, like,
The big picture.
yeah, the long-term consequences of all this.
Right. What does it mean for us?
Yeah, what happens if we just keep spending like this?
Well, it's not going to be pretty.
Okay, so paint me a picture.
Okay. So a constantly growing national debt.
Yeah.
It has some serious consequences for everyone.
Okay.
It can lead to inflation.
Okay, so everything gets more expensive.
Exactly. Your money doesn't go as far.
Right, and then what else?
Well, it can also drive up interest rates.
Okay, so
It's more expensive to,
it's harder to buy a house.
borrow money.
Yeah, a car, anything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Basically, it limits our economic potential.
So it's not just about wasted money.
Right.
It's about
the impact on the economy.
the impact on our lives, really.
Exactly. It affects everyone.
And like you said, both parties share the blame.
Both sides, yeah.
So it's not like we can just, right?
Blame one side or the other.
It's a systemic problem.
Yeah. So what do we do?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about all this waste.
Yeah.
But, what are the solutions?
Well, I think the first step is awareness.
Okay.
Reports like this Festivus report, they're so important.
They're really eye-opening.
Yeah, they bring these issues to light. They get people talking.
Yeah, but we can't just talk about it.
We got to do something.
Yeah, we have to take action.
Absolutely.
So what can we do?
Well, we need to hold our elected officials accountable.
Okay, how do we do that?
We demand transparency in government spending.
Okay.
And we advocate for policies that promote fiscal responsibility.
So basically, we need to be informed.
Yes.
Engaged. And willing to speak up.
Absolutely. Your voice matters.
Okay, so don't just sit there complaining about it.
Do something.
Actually do something.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Make a difference.
All right, well, this deep dive has definitely made me think about all this stuff.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah, and it's a good reminder that, we can't just assume our tax dollars are being used wisely.
We got to keep an eye on them.
Exactly.
Stay informed.
Stay informed. Stay engaged.
And make your voice heard.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the Festivus Report 2023.
It was a good one.
It was a good one. And I'm still thinking about those monkeys on treadmills.
Oh, yeah, those are pretty funny.
Yeah, but hey, at least it was for a good cause, right?
We hope so.
We hope so. But seriously, folks, this report highlights a ton of questionable spending.
Yeah, almost $900 billion worth.
So we want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
What responsibility do you have to hold the government accountable for how your hard-earned money is being spent?
It's a question worth pondering.
It is, and we encourage you to check out the Festivus Report 2023 for yourself.
Yeah. See what they have to say.
Air your grievances.
Get involved.
Get involved. And thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Until next time.